Besorah Marqus Bishop. Chapter 1. The beginning of the Besorah of Yahushua HaMashiach, the Son of Elohiym. As it is written in the prophets, Behold, I send my messenger, Malak, before your face, who shall prepare your way before you. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, Prepare ye the way, Derek, of Yahuwah, make his paths straight. Yeshar. Yehukanan immersed in the wilderness and preached the Basar, the immersion of repentance, la teshuvah, for the remission, selicha, of sins. And there went out to him all the land of Yehud, and they of Yerushalayim, and were all immersed by him in the river of Yarden, confessing their sins. And Yehukanan was clothed with camel's hair, and with a girdle of a skin about his loins. And he ate locusts and wild honey, and preached lebesar, saying, There comes one mightier than I after me, the latchet of whose shoes I am not worthy to stoop down and unloose. I indeed have immersed you with water, but he shall immerse you with the Ruach HaKodesh. And it came to pass in those days that Yahushua came from Nazareth of Galilee, and was immersed by Yehukanan in the Yarden. And straightway coming up out of the water, he saw the heavens, Hashamayim, opened, and the Ruach like a dove, Yonah, descending upon him. And there came a voice from heaven, Shamayim, saying, You are my Yechid, in whom I am well pleased. And immediately the Ruach drove him into the wilderness. And he was there in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and was with the wild beasts. And the angels, Malachim, ministered to him. Now after Yehukanan was put in prison, Yahushua came into Galilee, preaching the Besorah of the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah, and saying, The time is fulfilled, and the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah is at hand. Repent, teshuvah, and believe the Besorah. Now as he walked by the sea of Galilee, he saw Shimon and Andrei, his brother, casting a net into the sea, for they were fishers. And Yahushua said to them, Come after me, and I will make you become fishers of men. And straightway they left their nets and followed him. And when he had gone a little further there, he saw Yaakov, the son of Zabdi, and Yehukanan, his brother, who also were in the sailing vessel, mending their nets. And straightway he called them, and they left their father Zabdi in the sailing vessel with the hired servants, and went after him. And they went into Capharnaum, and straightway on the Shabbat he entered into the synagogue and taught. And they were astonished at his doctrine, for he taught them as one that had authority, and not as the scribes. And there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean tumah ruach, and he cried out, saying,
Let us alone. What have we to do with you, Yahushua the Netzari? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of Yahuwah.
And Yahushua rebuked him, saying, Hold your peace, and come out of him. And when the unclean tumah ruach had torn him, and cried with a loud voice, he came out of him. And they were all amazed, so much so that they questioned among themselves, saying, What thing is this? What new doctrine is this? For with authority he commands even the unclean tumah ruachoth, and they obey him. And immediately his fame spread abroad throughout all the region round about Galilee. And forthwith, when they came out of the synagogue, they entered into the house of Shimon and Andrei with Yaakov and Yehukanan. But Shimon's woman's mother lay sick of a fever, and immediately they told him about her. And he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up. And immediately the fever left her, and she ministered to them. And at evening, When the sun set, they brought to him all that were diseased and they who were possessed with devils, and all the city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many that were sick of diverse diseases, and cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak, because they knew him. And in the morning, rising up a great while before day, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. And Shimon and those who were with him followed after him. And when they had found him, they said to him, "Everyone is seeking for you." And he said to them, "Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, for that is the reason I came forth." And he preached Besorah in their synagogues throughout all Galilee, and cast out devils. And there a leper came to him, beseeching him, and kneeling down to him, and saying to him, "If you will, you can make me clean." And Yahusha, moved with compassion, chesed, put forth his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I will be clean." And as soon as he had spoken, immediately the leprosy departed from him, and he was cleansed. And he charged him straitly, and sent him away, and said to him, "See that you say nothing to any man, but go your way, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing those things which Moshe commanded for a testimony to them." But he went out and began to publicize it and to blaze the matter abroad, so much so that Yahusha could no more openly enter into the city, but stayed out in desert places, and they came to him from every quarter. Chapter 2. And again he entered into Capharnaum after some days, and there was a noise that he was in the house. And straightway many were gathered together, so much so that there was no room to receive them, no, not even about the door. And he preached Besorah, the word Omer, to them. And they came to him, bringing one sick of the palsy, who was carried by 4. And when they could not come near to him for the press, they uncovered the roof where he was. And when they had broken it up, they let down the bed whereupon the sick of the palsy lay. When Yahusha saw their belief, emunah, he said to the sick of the palsy, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Nasa. But there were certain the scribes sitting there and reasoning in their hearts, "Why does this man speak blasphemies? Neat Sahim, who can forgive Nasa sins, but Yahuwah only." And immediately when Yahusha perceived in his ruach that they reasoned so within themselves, he said to them, "Why do ye reason these things in your hearts? Is it easier to say to the sick of the palsy, 'Your sins be forgiven,' Nasa you, or to say, 'Arise and take up your bed and walk'? But that ye may know, Yada, that the Son of Adam, Ben Adam, has power, Gevorah, on earth to forgive Nasa sins, I say to you, arise and take up your bed and go your way into your house." And immediately he arose, took up the bed, and went forth before them all, so much that they were all amazed, and glorified Yah, saying, "We never saw it in this fashion." And he went forth again by the seaside, and all the multitude resorted to him, and he taught them. And as he passed by, he saw Levi, the son of Chalef, sitting at the receipt of customs, and said to him, "Follow me." And he arose and followed him. And it came to pass that as Yahusha sat to eat in his house, many publicans and sinners, ha-chetachim, sat also together with Yahusha and his Talmudim, for there were many, and they followed him. And when the scribes and the Perishim saw him eat with publicans and sinners, ha-chetachim, they said to his Talmudim, How is it that he eats and drinks with publicans and sinners? Ha-chet-chaim. When Yahusha heard, he said to them, They that are whole have no need of the physician, but they that are sick. I did not come to call the righteous, et ha-tzadikim, but sinners, ha-chet-chaim, to repentance, l'teshuvah. And the Talmudim of Yehukanan and of the Talmudim of the Pereshim used to fast. And they came and said to him, Why do the Talmudim of Yehukanan and of the Pereshim fast, but your Talmudim do not fast? And Yahusha said to them, Can the children of the bride chamber fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. But the days will come when the bridegroom shall be taken away from them, and then shall they fast in those days. No man also sews a piece of new cloth on an old garment, or else the new piece that filled it up takes away from the old, and the rent is made worse. And no man puts new wine into old wineskins, or else the new wine bursts the wineskins, and the wine is spilled, and the wineskins will be marred. But new wine must be put into new wineskins. And it came to pass that as he went through the fields on the Shabbat, and his Talmudim began, as they went, to pluck the heads of grain. And the Pereshim said to him, Behold, why on the Shabbat do they do that which is not lawful? And he said to them, Have ye never read what David did when he had need and was hungry, and they that were with him? How he went into the house of Yahuwah in the days of Abiathar the high priest, and did eat the showbread of Yahuwah, which is not lawful to eat but for the priests, and also gave it to them who were with him. And he said to them, The Shabbat was made for man, and not man for the Shabbat. Therefore the son of Adam, Ben Adam, is Adonai also of the Shabbat. Chapter 3. And he entered again into the synagogue, and there was a man there who had a withered hand, saying, I was a mason, seeking sustenance by my hands. I beseech you, Yahusha, that you restore me my health, that I may not shamefully beg for food. And they watched him, whether he would heal him on the Shabbat, that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, Stand forth. And he said to them, Is it lawful to do good on the Shabbat, or to do evil, to save life, chai, or to kill? But they held their peace. And when he had looked round about on them with anger, being grieved for the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, Stretch forth your hand. And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored, whole as the other. And the Pereshim went forth, and straightway took counsel with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. But Yahusha withdrew himself with his Talmudim to the sea, and a great multitude from Galil followed him, and from Yehud, and from Yerushalayim, and from Edom, and from beyond the Yarden. And they from Tzor and Sidon, a great multitude, when they had heard what great things he did, came to him. And he spoke to his Talmudim that a small sailing vessel should wait on him because of the multitude, lest they should throng him. For he had healed many, so much so that they pressed upon him to touch him, as many had plagues. And unclean Tuma, Ruakoth, when they saw him, fell down before him and cried, saying, You are the Son of Elohiym. And he straitly charged them that they should not make him known. And he went up into a mountain and called to him who he would, and they came to him. And when he had come to Capharnaum, he entered into the house of Shimon Kepha, and opened his mouth, and said, Passing by the lake of Tiberia, I chose out Yehukanan and Yaakov, sons of Zabdi, and Shimon and Andrai, and Thadai, and Shimon the Zealot, and Yehuda the Iskariot, and you, Mattatyahu, sitting at the receipt of custom I called, and you did follow me. I will, therefore, that you be 12 apostles for a testimony to Yashara'el. And he ordained 12, that they should be with him, and that he might send them forth to preach, and to have power, Gevorah, to heal sicknesses, and to cast out devils. And Shimon he surnamed Kepha, and Yaakov, the son of Zabdi, and Yehukanan, the brother of Yaakov, and he surnamed them Ben Ragosh, which is the sons of thunder. And Andrai, and Philip, and Bar Talmai, and Mattatyahu, and Theom, and Yaakov, the son of Chalef, and Thadai, and Shimon the Kenani, and Yehuda Iskariot, who also betrayed him. And they went into a house, and the multitude came together again, so that they could not so much as eat bread. And when his friends heard of it, they went out to lay hold on him, for they said, He is beside himself. And the scribes which came down from Jerusalem said, He has Beelzebub, and by the prince of devils he casts out devils. And he called them to him, and said to them in parables, Mashal, how can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom, Malkuth, is divided against itself, that kingdom, Malkuth, cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rises up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but has an end. No man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except that he first binds the strong man, and then he can spoil the house. Amen, I say to you, all sins shall be forgiven, Nasa, to the sons of men, and whatever blasphemies, Neatzachim, they shall blaspheme, Neatza, but he that shall blaspheme, Neatza, against the Ruach HaKodesh, never has forgiveness, Nasa, but is in danger of eternal damnation, because they said, He has an unclean Tuma Ruach. There came then his brethren and his mother, and standing outside, sent to him, calling him. And the multitude sat about him, and they said to him, Behold, your mother and brethren outside seek for you. And he answered them, saying, Who is my mother or my brethren? And he looked round about on them who sat about him, and said, Behold, my mother and my brethren. For whosoever shall do the will, Keter, of Yahuwah, the same is my brother and my sister and mother. Chapter 4. And he began again to teach by the seaside, and a great multitude there was gathered to him, so that he entered into a sailing vessel and sat in the sea, and the whole multitude was by the sea on the land. And he taught them many things by parables, mashal, and said to them in his doctrine, Hearken, behold, there went out a sower to sow. And it came to pass, as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and the fowls of the air came and devoured it up. And some fell on stony ground, where it did not have much earth, and immediately it sprang up, because it had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, it was scorched, and because it had no root, it withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no fruit. And other fell on good ground, and yielded fruit that sprang up and increased, and brought forth some 30, and some 60, and some 100. And he said to them, He that has ears to hear, let him hear. And when he was alone, they that were about him with the 12 asked him about the parable, Mashal. And he said to them, to you it is given to know, Yada, the mystery of the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah. But to those who are outside, all these things are done in parables, Mashal, that seeing they may see and not perceive, and hearing they may hear and not understand, Bina, lest at any time they should repent and their sins should be forgiven, Nasa, them. And he said to them, do ye not know this parable, Mashal? And how then will ye know all parables, Mashal? The sower sows the word, Omer, and these are they by the wayside, where the word, Omer, is sown. But when they have heard, Satan comes immediately and takes away the word, Omer, that was sown in their hearts. And these are they likewise, which are sown on stony ground, who, when they have heard the word, Omer, immediately receive it with gladness, but have no root in themselves, and so endure netzach only for a time. Afterward, when affliction or persecution arises for the words, Omer, sake, immediately they are offended. And these are they which are sown among thorns, such as hear the word, Omer, and the cares of this world, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the lusts of other things enter in, choke the word, Omer, and it becomes unfruitful. And these are they which are sown on good ground, such as hear the word, Omer, and receive it, and bring forth fruit, some 30-fold, some 60, and some 100. And he said to them, is a candle brought to be put under a bushel or under a bed, and not to be set on a menorah? For there is nothing hidden which shall not be made manifest, neither was anything kept secret, but that it should come abroad. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear. And he said to them, take heed what ye hear. With what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you. And to you that hear shall more be given. For he that has, to him shall be given. And he that has not, from him even that which he has shall be taken. And he said, so is the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah, as if a man should cast seed into the ground, and should sleep, and rise night and day. And he does not know how the seed should spring and grow up, for the earth brings forth fruit of herself, first the blade, then the grain, after that the full head of grain. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he puts in the sickle, because the harvest is come. And he said, what shall we liken the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah? Or with what comparison shall we compare it? It is like a grain of mustard seed, which, when it is sown in the earth, is less than all the seeds that are in the earth. But when it is sown, it grows up and becomes greater than all herbs, and shoots out great branches, so that the fowls of the air may lodge under the shadow of it. And with many such parables, Mashal, he spoke the word, Omer, to them, as they were able to hear it. He did not speak to them except by parables, Mashal. And when they were alone, he expounded all things to his Talmudim. And the same day, when the evening came, he said to them, "Let us pass over to the other side." And when they had sent away the multitude, they took him even as he was in the sailing vessel. And there were also with him other little sailing vessels. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the sailing vessel, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the sailing vessel, asleep on a pillow. And they awoke him and said to him, "Rabbi, do you not care that we perish?" And he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, shalom, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no belief?" Emunah. And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, "What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Chapter 5. And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Girgashim. And when he was come out of the sailing vessel, immediately there a man with an unclean ruach met him out of the tombs, who had his dwelling among the tombs. And no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. But when he saw Yahusha afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said,
"What do I have to do with you, Yahusha, son of Elohiym? I adjure you by Yahuwah that you do not torment me."
For he said to him, "Come out of the man, you unclean ruach." And he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying,
"My name is Legion, for we are many."
And he sought him much, that he would not send them away to the outer darkness, Sitra Ara. Now there was there, near to the mountains, a great herd of swine feeding. And all the devils sought him, saying,
"Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them."
And forthwith Yahusha gave them leave. And the unclean Ruakoth went out and entered into the swine. And the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were choked in the sea. And they that fed the swine fled, and told of it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that was done. And they came to Yahusha, and to see him that had been possessed with the devil, and had the legion, sitting and clothed, and in his right mind. And they were afraid. And they that saw it told to them how it befell him who was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. And they began to ask him to depart out of their coasts. And when he came into the sailing vessel, he that had been possessed with the devil asked him that he might be with him. Yahusha did not suffer him, but said to him, "Go home to your friends, and tell them the great things Yahuwah has done for you, and has had compassion, chesed, on you." And he departed, and began to publicize in Decapolis the great things Yahusha had done for him, and all men marveled. And when Yahusha had passed over again by sailing vessel to the other side, many people gathered to him, and he was near to the sea. And behold, there came one of the rulers of the synagogue, Yair by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and sought him greatly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. I ask you, come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed and she shall live. And Yahusha went with him, and many people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. When she had heard of Yahusha, she came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be made whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Yahusha, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, who touched my clothes? And his Talmudim said to him, you see the multitude thronging you, and say, who touched me? And he looked round about to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said to her, daughter, your belief, Amunah, has made you whole. Go in peace, shalom, and be whole of your plague. While he yet spoke, there came a ruler of the synagogue's house, one who said, your daughter is dead. Why trouble the rabbi any further? As soon as Yahusha heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not be afraid, only believe. And he suffered no man to follow him, save Kepha and Yaakov and Yehukanan, the brother of Yaakov. And he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw the tumult and those who wept and wailed greatly. And when he came in, he said to them, why do ye make this ado and weep? The girl is not dead, but sleeps. And they laughed him to scorn. But when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother of the girl and those who were with him and entered where the girl was lying. And he took the girl by the hand and said to her, Talitha kumi, which is, being interpreted, girl, I say to you, arise. And straightway the girl arose and walked, for she was of the age of 12 years. And they were astonished with a great astonishment. And he charged them straitly that no man should know Yada it, and commanded that she should be given something to eat. Chapter 6. And he went out from there and came into his own country, and his Talmudim followed him. And when the Shabbat came, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many hearing him were astonished, saying, from where has this man obtained these things? And what wisdom, chokmah, is this which is given to him, that even such mighty works are wrought by his hands? Is not this the carpenter, the son of Miriam, the brother of Yaakov and Yosef, and of Yehuda and Shimon? And are his sisters not here with us? And they were offended at him. But Yahusha said to them, a prophet is not without honor, kavod, but in his own country, and among his own kin, and in his own house. And he could do no mighty work there, save that he had laid his hands upon a few sick folk and healed them. And he marveled because of their unbelief. And he went round about the villages, teaching. And he called to him the 12, and began to send them forth by 2 and 2, and gave them power, Gevorah, over unclean, Tuma, Ruakoth, and commanded them that they should take nothing for their journey, save a staff only, no scrip, no bread, no money in their purse. Be shod with sandals, and do not put on 2 coats. And he said to them, in whatever place when ye enter into a house, abide there till ye depart from that place. And whoever does not receive you, nor hear you, when ye depart from there, shake off the dust under your feet for a testimony against them. Amen, I say to you, it shall be more tolerable for Sodom and Amorah in the day of judgment, Mishpat, than for that city. And they went out and preached the Besorah, that men should repent, teshuvah. And they cast out many devils, and anointed with oil many that were sick, and healed them. And King Herod heard of him, for his name was spread abroad. And he said that Yehukanan the Immerser was risen from the dead, and therefore in him mighty works show themselves. Others said that it is Eliyahu, and others said it is a prophet, or is one of the prophets, Nevi'im. But when Herod heard, he said, it is Yehukanan, whom I beheaded. He is risen from the dead. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon Yehukanan, and bound him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's woman, for he had married her. For Yehukanan had said to Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's woman. Therefore Herodias had a quarrel with him, and would have killed him, but she could not. For Herod feared Yehukanan, knowing that he was a just man and holy, and observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things, and heard him gladly. And when a convenient day came, that Herod, on his birthday, made a supper to his lords, high captains, and chief rosh, estates of Galil. And when the daughter of Herodias came in and danced, and pleased Herod and those that sat with him, the king said to her, ask of me whatever you will, and I will give it to you. And he swore to her, whatever you shall ask of me, I will give it to you, to the half of my kingdom. And she went forth and said to her mother, what shall I ask? And she said, the head of Yehukanan the Immerser. And she came in straightway with haste to the king, and asked, saying, I will that you give me by and by in a charger the head of Yehukanan the Immerser. And the king was exceedingly sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for the sakes of those who sat with him, he could not reject her. And immediately the king sent an executioner, and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the girl. And the girl gave it to her mother. And when his Talmudim heard of it, they came and took up his corpse, and laid it in a tomb. And the Talmudim gathered themselves together with Yahusha, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said to them, set yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they did not have so much leisure as to eat. And they departed privately into a desert place by sailing vessel. And the people saw them departing, and many knew him, and ran afoot out of all cities, and went out and came to him. And Yahusha, when he came out, saw many people, and was moved with compassion, chesed, toward them, because they were as sheep, so on, who did not have a shepherd, roi. And he began to teach them many things. And when the day was far spent, his Talmudim came to him and said, this is a desert place, and the time is now far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about, and into the villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said to them, give them to eat. And they said to him, shall we go and buy 200 denarii of bread, and give that to them to eat? He said to them, how many loaves do ye have? Go and see. And when they knew, they said, 5 and 2 fish, and he commanded them to make them all sit down by symposium upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, Romaiym, and blessed and broke the loaves and gave them to his talmidim to set before them. And the 2 fish he divided among them all. And they did all eat and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of the fragments and of the fish. And they that ate of the loaves were about 5,000 men. And straightway he constrained his talmidim to get into the sailing vessel and to get to the other side before to Beth-sayad, while he sent away the people. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray Palal. And when even came, the sailing vessel was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling in rowing, for the wind was contrary to them. At about the 4th watch of the night, he came to them walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. But when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a ruach, and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. And immediately he talked with them and said to them, Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid. And he went up to them to the sailing vessel, and the wind ceased, and they were sorely amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered. For they did not consider the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. And when they had passed over, they came into the land of Kinneroth, and drew to the shore. And when they came out of the sailing vessel, straightway they knew him, and they ran through that whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those that were sick, to where they heard he was. And wherever he entered, into villages or cities or country, they laid the sick in the streets, and sought him that they might touch but the border of his garment. And as many as touched him were made whole. Chapter 7. Then the Perashim came to him, and certain of the scribes who came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his talmidim eat bread with defiled, that is to say, unwashed, hands, they found fault. For the Perashim and all the Yahudim do not eat except they first wash their hands, holding to the tradition of the elders. And when they come from the market, they do not eat except they wash. And there were many other things which they held to, such as the washing of cups and pots, brazen vessels, and of tables. Then the Perashim and scribes asked him, Why do your talmidim not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? He answered and said to them, Yeshayahu prophesied of you hypocrites, Chaneth, well, as it is written, these people honor Hadar, me with their lips, but their heart, Levav, is far from me. However, they worship me in vain, teaching for doctrines the commandments, halacha, of men, for laying aside the commandment, mitzvah, of Yahuwah. Ye hold to the traditions of men, as the washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. And he said to them, Ye full well reject the commandments, mitzvah, of Yahuwah, that you may guard your own traditions. For Moshe said, Honor Hadar, your father, Avi, and your mother, Ima, and whoever curses his father or mother, let him die the death. But ye say, if a man shall say to his father or mother, it is korban, that is to say, a gift, by whatever you might be profited by me, he shall be free. And ye do not suffer him to do anything more for his father or his mother, making the word Omer of Yahweh of no effect through your tradition, which ye have delivered. And ye do many such like things. And when he had called all the people to him, he said to them, Hearken to me, every one of you, and understand. Binah. There is nothing from outside a man that entering into him can defile him, but the things which come out of him, those are they that defile the man. If any man have ears to hear, let him hear. And when he entered into the house from the people, his Talmudim asked him concerning the parable, Mashal. And he said to them, Are ye so without understanding, Binah? Also, do ye not perceive that whatever thing from the outside enters into the man, it cannot defile him, because it does not enter into his heart, levav, but into the belly, and goes out into the drought, purging all foods? And he said, It is that which comes out of the man that defiles the man. For from within, out of the heart, levav, of men proceed evil thoughts, machashabahara, adulteries, neaf, fornications, zana, murders, ratzach, thefts, ganeba, covetousness, betza, wickedness, ra, deceit, ramiyah, lasciviousness, sakara, an evil eye, ain raya, blasphemy, neetza, pride, zadown, foolishness, evileth. All these evil things come from within and defile the man. And from there he arose and went into the borders of Tsor and Sidon, and entered into a house, and would have no man know Yada of it. But he could not be hid. For a certain woman whose young daughter had an unclean Duma Ruach heard of him, and came and fell at his feet. The woman was a Yavani, a Syrophoenician by nation, and she sought him that he would cast the devil out of her daughter. But Yahusha said to her, Let the children first be filled, for it is not right to take the children's bread, lechem, and cast it to the dogs. And she answered and said to him, Yes, Adonai, yet the dogs under the table eat of the children's crumbs. And he said to her, For this saying, go your way, the devil is gone out of your daughter. And when she came to her house, she found the devil gone out, and her daughter laid upon the bed. And again, departing from the coasts of Tsor and Sidon, he came to the Sea of Galilee through the midst of the coasts of Decapolis. And they brought to him one that was deaf and had an impediment in his speech. And they sought him to put his hand upon him. And he took him aside from the multitude, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spit and touched his tongue, and looking up to heaven, Shamayim, he sighed, and said to him, Pathach, that is, be opened. And straightway his ears were opened, and the string of his tongue was loosed, and he spoke plainly. And he charged them that they should tell no man. But the more he charged them, so much the more a great deal they publicized it, and were astonished beyond measure, saying, He has done all things well. He makes both the deaf to hear and the dumb to speak. Chapter 8. In those days, the multitude being very great, and having nothing to eat, Yahusha called his Talmudim to him and said to them, I have compassion, chesed, on the multitude, because they have now been with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And if I send them away fasting to their own houses, they will faint by the way, for many of them came from afar. And his Talmudim answered him, How can a man satisfy these men with bread here in the wilderness? And he asked them, How many loaves do ye have? And they said, 7. And he commanded the people to sit down on the ground. And he took the 7 loaves and gave thanks and broke and gave to his Talmudim to set before them. And they set them before the people. And they had a few small fish, and he blessed and commanded to set them also before them. So they ate and were filled, and they took up 7 baskets of the broken food that was left. And they that had eaten were about 4,000, and he sent them away. And straightway he entered into a sailing vessel with his Talmudim, and came into the parts of Dalmanutha. And the Perishim came forth and began to question him, seeking of him a sign from heaven, Shamayim, tempting him. And he sighed deeply in his ruach and said, Why does this nation seek after a sign? Amen, I say to you, there shall no sign be given to this nation. And he left them, and entering into the sailing vessel again, departed to the other side. Now the Talmudim had forgotten to take bread, neither did they have with them in the sailing vessel more than 1 loaf. And he charged them, saying, Take heed, beware of the leaven of the Perishim, and of the leaven of Herod. And they reasoned among themselves, saying, It is because we have no bread. And when Yahusha knew it, he said to them, Why do ye reason, because ye have no bread? Do ye not perceive yet, or understand? Bina, have ye your heart, levav, yet hardened? Having eyes, do ye not see? And having ears, do ye not hear? And do ye not remember? When I broke the 5 loaves among 5,000, how many baskets full of fragments did ye take up? They said to him, 12. And when the 7 among 4,000, how many baskets full of fragments did ye take up? And they said, 7. And he said to them, How is it that ye do not understand? Bina. And he came to Bethsaida, and they brought a blind man to him, and sought him to touch him. And he took the blind man by the hand, and led him out of the town. And when he had spit on his eyes, and put his hands upon him, he asked him if he saw anything. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. After that, he put his hands again upon his eyes, and made him look up. And he was restored, and saw every man clearly. And he sent him away to his house, saying, Do not go into the town, or tell it to any in the town. And Yahusha went out, and his Talmudim, into the towns of Caesarea Philippi. And by the way, he asked his Talmudim, saying to them, Whom do men say that I am? And they answered, Yehuchanan the Immerser, but some say Eliyahu, and others one of the prophets. And he said to them, But whom do ye say that I am? And Kepha answered and said to him, You are Hamashiach. And he charged them that they should tell no man of him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Adam, Ben Adam, must suffer many things, and be rejected by the elders, and the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. And he spoke that, saying openly. And Kepha took him, and began to rebuke him. But when he had turned about and looked on his talmidim, he rebuked Kepha, saying, "Get behind me, Satan, for you do not savor the things that are of Yahuwah, but the things that are of men." And when he had called the people to him with his talmidim also, he said to them, "Whoever will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his staff and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the Besorah's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul, nefesh? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul, nefesh? Whosoever, therefore, shall be ashamed of me and of my words, devarim, in this adulterous and sinful nation, of him also shall the Son of Adam, Ben Adam, be ashamed when he comes in the glory, kavod, of his Father, Avi, with the holy angels, Malakim. Chapter 9. And he said to them, Amen, I say to you, that there are some that stand here who shall not taste of death till they have seen the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah come with power, Gevorah. And after 6 days, Yahusha took Kepha and Yaakov and Yehukanan and led them up to a high mountain apart by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his raiment became shining, exceedingly white as snow, so as no clothier on earth can whiten them. And there Eliyahu appeared to them with Moshe, and they were talking with Yahusha. And Kepha answered and said to Yahusha, Rabbi, it is good for us to be here, and let us make 3 Sukkot, one for you, and one for Moshe, and one for Eliyahu, for he did not know what to say, for they were sorely afraid. And there was a cloud that overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud, saying, This is my Yechid, hear him. And suddenly, when they had looked round about, they saw no man any more, save Yahusha only with themselves. And as they came down from the mountain, he charged them that they should tell no man what things they had seen till the Son of Adam, Ben Adam, had risen from the dead. And they kept that saying with themselves, questioning with one another what the rising from the dead should mean. And they asked him, saying, Why do the scribes say that Eliyahu must come first? And he answered and told them, Eliyahu indeed comes first and restores all things, and how it is written of the Son of Adam, Ben Adam, that he must suffer many things and be set at naught. But I say to you that Eliyahu has indeed come, and they have done to him whatever they willed, as it is written of him. And when he came to his talmidim, he saw a great multitude about them, and the scribes were questioning them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluted him. And he asked the scribes, What question do ye have with them? And one of the multitude answered and said, Rabbi, I have brought to you my son, who has a dumb ruach, and wherever he takes him, he tears him, and he foams and gnashes with his teeth, and pines away. And I spoke to your talmidim that they should cast him out, and they could not. He answered him and said, Oh, unbelieving nation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him to me. And they brought him to him. And when he saw him, straightway the ruach tore him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed, foaming. And he asked his father, "How long ago is it since this came to him?" And he said, "As a child. And ofttimes it has cast him into the fire and into the waters to destroy him. But if you can do anything, have compassion, chesed, on us and help us." Yahusha said to him, "If you can believe, all things are possible to him that believes." And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, "Adonai, I believe, help my unbelief." When Yahusha saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul ruach, saying to him, "You dumb and deaf ruach, I charge you, come out of him and do not enter into him any more." And the ruach cried and sorely rent him and came out of him. And he was as one dead, so much so that many said, "He is dead." But Yahusha took him by the hand and lifted him up. And he arose. And when he had come into the house, his Talmudim asked him privately, "Why could we not cast him out?" And he said to them, "This kind can come forth by nothing but prayer and fasting." And they departed there and passed through Galilee, and he did not allow that any man should know Yada it. For he taught his Talmudim and said to them, "The son of Adam, ben Adam, is to be delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and after he is killed, he shall rise the third day." But they did not understand Binah, that saying, and were afraid to ask him. And he came to Capharnaum, and being in the house, he asked them, "What was it that ye disputed among yourselves by the way?" But they held their peace, for by the way they had disputed among themselves as to who should be the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12, and said to them, "If any man desire to be first, he shall be last of all, and the servant of all." And he took a child, and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever shall receive one of such children in my name receives me. And whoever shall receive me does not receive me, but him that sent me." And Yehuchanan answered him, saying, "Rabbi, we saw one casting out devils in your name, but he does not follow us, and we forbade him because he does not follow us." But Yahusha said, "Do not forbid him, for there is no man who shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is on our part. For whoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because ye belong to Hamashiach, amen, I say to you, he shall not lose his reward. And whoever shall offend one of these little ones that believes in me, it is better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and he were cast into the sea. And if your hand offends you, cut it off. It is better for you to enter into life, chai, maimed, than having two hands to go into Gehinnom, into the fire that never shall be quenched, where their worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. And if your foot offends you, cut it off. It is better for you to enter crippled into life, chai, than having 2 feet to be cast into Gehinnom, into the fire that never shall be quenched, where their worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. And if your eye, ayin, offends you, pluck it out. It is better for you to enter into the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah with 1 eye, ayin, than having 2 eyes to be cast into the fire of Gehinnom, where their worm does not die, and the fire is not quenched. For everyone shall be salted with fire, and every sacrifice, zebach, shall be salted with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt has lost his saltiness, with what will ye season it? have salt in yourselves, and have peace, shalom, with one another. Chapter 10. And he arose from there and came to the coasts of Yahud by the farther side of the Jordan. And the people resorted to him again, and, as was his custom, he taught them again. And the Perishim came to him and asked him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his woman? Tempting him. And he answered and said to them, What did Moshe command you? And they said, Moshe suffered to write a sefer of divorcement and to put her away. And Yahusha answered and said to them, For the hardness of your heart, Lavav, he wrote you this precept. But from the beginning of the creation, Elohim made them male and female. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his woman, and they two shall be one flesh. So then they are no more two, but one flesh. What, therefore, Yah has joined together, let not man put asunder. And in the house his Talmudim asked him again the same matter. And he said to them, Whoever shall put away his woman and marry another breaks wedlock, ne'af, against her. And if a woman shall put away her man and be married to another, she breaks wedlock, ne'af. And they brought young children to him that he should touch them, and his Talmudim rebuked those that brought them. But when Yahusha saw it, he was very displeased, and said to them, Suffer the little children to come to me, and do not forbid them, for of such is the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah. Amen, I say to you, whoever shall not receive the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah as a little child shall not enter therein. And he took them up in his arms, put his hands upon them, and blessed them. And when he was gone into the way, there came one running and kneeled to him and asked him, Good Rabbi, what shall I do that I may inherit eternal life? Chai olam. And Yahusha said to him, Why do ye call me good? There is none good but one, that is Yahuwah. You know, Yada, the commandments, mitzvot. Do not break wedlock, lo ne'ah. Do not kill, lo rasak. Do not steal, lo ganav. Do not bear false witness, lo sheker aid. Do not defraud, lo ashak. Honor your father and your mother, kavod ha'ab u'chaim. And he answered and said to him, Rabbi, all these have I observed from my youth. Then Yahusha, beholding him, loved Ahav him, and said to him, One thing you lack. Go your way, sell whatever you have, and give to the poor, and you shall have treasure in heaven, Shamayim. And come, take up your staff, and follow me. And he was sad at that saying, and went away grieved, for he had great possessions. And Yahusha looked round about, and said to his Talmudim, How hardly shall they that have riches enter into the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah. And the Talmudim were astonished at his words, Devarim. But Yahusha answered again, and said to them, Children, how hard is it for those that trust in riches to enter into the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah? It is easier for a camel, Gamal, to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter into the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah. The other of the rich men said to him, Adonai, what good thing shall I do and live? And he said unto him, Man, perform the Torah and the prophets. He answered him, I have performed them. He said to him, "Go, sell all that you have, and divide it to the poor, and come, follow me." But the rich man began to scratch his head, and it did not please him. And Yahusha said to him, "How do you say, 'I have performed the Torah and the prophets,' seeing that it is written in the Torah, 'You shall love your neighbor as yourself'? And behold, many of your brethren, sons of Abraham, are clad with dung, dying for hunger, and your house is full of much goods, and there goes out from you nothing at all to them." And he turned and said to Shimon, his Talmudi, sitting by him, "Shimon bar Yonah, it is easier for a camel to enter through the eye of a needle than a rich man into the kingdom of Yahuwah." And they were astonished out of measure, saying among themselves, "Who then can be saved?" And Yahusha, looking upon them, said, "With men it is impossible, but not with Yah, for with Yah all things are possible." Then Kepha began to say to him, "Lo, we have left everything and have followed you." And Yahusha answered and said, "Amen, I say to you, there is no man that has left a house, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or woman, or children, or lands for my sake and the Besorahs, but he shall receive 100-fold now in this time, houses, and brethren, and sisters, and mothers, and children, and lands, with persecutions, and in the world to come eternal life. Chai olam. But many that are first shall be last, and the last first. And they were in the way, going up to Jerusalem, and Yahusha went before them, and they were amazed. And as they followed, they were afraid. And he took again the 12, and began to tell them what things should happen to him, saying, "Behold, we go up to Jerusalem, and the son of Adam, Ben Adam, shall be delivered to the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and to the scribes, and they shall condemn him to death, and shall deliver him to the other nations, and they shall mock him, and shall scourge him, and shall spit upon him, and shall kill him, and the third day he shall rise again." And Yaakov and Yehukanan, the sons of Zabdi, came to him, saying, "Rabbi, we ask that you should do for us whatever we shall desire." And he said to them, "What do ye want that I should do for you?" They said to him, "Grant to us that we may sit, one on your right hand, and the other on your left hand, in your glory, kavod." But Yahusha said to them, "Ye know not what ye ask. Can ye drink of the cup of which I drink, and be immersed with the immersion with which I am immersed?" And they said to him, "We can." And Yahusha said to them, "Ye shall indeed drink of the cup that I drink of, and with the immersion that I am immersed with shall ye be immersed. But to sit on my right hand and on my left hand is not mine to give, but it shall be given to them for whom it is prepared." And when the 10 heard, they began to be very displeased with Yaakov and Yehukanan. But Yahusha called them to him, and said to them, "Ye know that they who are accounted to rule over the other nations exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be so among you. Whoever will be great among you shall be your minister, and whoever of you will be the chief Rosh of all shall be servant of all. For even the son of Adam, Ben Adam, did not come to be ministered to, but to minister, and to give his life, chai, a ransom for many." And they came to Jericho, and as he went out of Jericho with his Talmudim, a great number of people, blind Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, sat by the highway side begging. And when he heard that it was Yahusha the Netzari, he began to cry out and say, Yahusha, son of David, have mercy, chesed, on me. And many charged him that he should hold his peace, but he cried the more a great deal, Son of David, have mercy, chesed, on me. And Yahusha stood still and commanded him to be called. And they call the blind man, saying to him, Be of good comfort, rise, he calls you. And he, casting away his garment, rose and came to Yahusha. And Yahusha answered and said to him, What do you want that I should do to you? The blind man said to him, Adonai, that I might receive my sight. And Yahusha said to him, Go your way, your belief, emunah, has made you whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Yahusha in the way. Derek. Chapter 11. And when they came near to Yerushalayim, to Bet, Pag, and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his Talmudim and said to them, Go into the village over against you, and as soon as ye enter into it, ye shall find a colt tied, on which no man ever sat. Loose him and bring him. And if any man says to you, Why are ye doing this? Say that Adonai has need of him, and straightway he will send him. And they went their way, and found the colt tied by the door, in a place where 2 ways met, and they loosed him. And certain ones that stood there said to them, What are ye doing, loosing the colt? And they said to them as Yahusha had commanded, and they let them go. And they brought the colt to Yahusha, and cast their garments on him, and he sat upon him. And many spread their garments in the way, Derek, and others cut down branches off the trees and strewed them along the way, Derek. And they that went before and they that followed cried, saying, Hosanna, blessed is he that comes in the name of Yahuwah. Blessed be the kingdom, Malkuth, of our father Avinu, David, that comes in the name of Yahuwah, Hosanna in the highest. And Yahusha entered into Jerusalem and into the temple. And when he had looked round about upon all things, and the evening came, he went out to Bethany with the 12. And the following day, when they were coming from Bethany, he was hungry. And seeing a fig tree afar off having leaves, he came to see if he might find anything on it. And when he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not yet the time of figs. And Yahusha answered and said to it, No man will eat your fruit hereafter forever. And his Talmudim heard it. And they came to Jerusalem, and Yahusha went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And they would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying to them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? But ye have made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and chief priests, Rosh Kohen, heard, and sought how they might destroy him. For they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his doctrine. And when evening came, he went out of the city. And in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Kepha, calling to remembrance, said to him, Rabbi, behold, the fig tree which you cursed is withered away. And Yahusha answering said to them, have belief, emunah, in Yahuwah. For amen, I say to you, that whoever shall say to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, levav, but shall believe that those things which he says shall come to pass, he shall have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things ye desire, when ye pray, palal, believe that ye receive them, and ye shall have them. And when ye stand praying, amidah, forgive nasa, if ye have anything against any, that your Father, Avi, also, who is in heaven, Shamayim, may forgive nasa, you, your transgressions, pesha. But if ye do not forgive nasa, neither will your Father, Avi, who is in heaven, Shamayim, forgive nasa, your transgressions, pesha. And they came again to Jerusalem, and as he was walking in the temple, there came to him the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and the scribes, and the elders. And they said to him, by what authority do you these things? And who gave you this authority to do these things? And Yahusha answered and said to them, I will also ask of you one question, and answer me, and I will tell you by what authority I do these things. The immersion of Yehukanan, was it from heaven, Shamayim, or of men? Answer me. And they reasoned within themselves, saying, if we shall say from heaven, Shamayim, he will say, why then did ye not believe him? But if we shall say of men, they feared the people, for all men counted as a prophet indeed. And they answered and said to Yahusha, we cannot tell. And Yahusha answering said to them, neither do I tell you by what authority I do these things. Chapter 12. And he began to speak unto them by parables, mashal. A certain man planted a vineyard, and set a hedge about it, and dug a place for the wine fat, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen, and went into a far country. And at the set time he sent to the husbandmen a servant, that he might receive from the husbandmen of the fruit of the vineyard. And they caught him, and beat him, and sent him away empty. And again he sent to them another servant, and at him they cast stones, and wounded him in the head, and sent him away shamefully handed. And again he sent another, and they killed him, and many others, beating some, and killing some. Having yet, therefore, one son, his Yachid, he sent him to them last, saying, they will reverence my son. But those husbandmen said among themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and the inheritance shall be ours. And they took him and killed him and cast him out of the vineyard. What shall, therefore, the master of the vineyard do? He will come and destroy the husbandmen, and will give the vineyard to others. And have ye not read this scripture? The stone, Eben, which the builders rejected, is become the head, Rosh, of the corner, Pinah. This was Yahuwah's doing, and it is marvelous in our eyes. And they sought to lay hold on him, but feared the people, for they knew that he had spoken the parable against them. And they left him and went their way. And they sent to him certain of the Perishim and of the Herodians to catch him in his words, Devarim. And when they came, they said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are true and care for no man, for you do not regard the person of men, but teach the way, derek, of Elohiym, in truth, emet. Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? Shall we give or shall we not give? But he, knowing their hypocrisy, said to them, Why do ye tempt me? Bring me a denarius, that I may see it. And they brought it. And he said to them, Whose image is this, and the superscription? And they said to him, Caesar's. And Yahusha, answering, said to them, Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to Yah the things that are Yahuwah's. And they marveled at him. Then the Sadokim came to him, who say, There is no resurrection. And they asked him, saying, Rabbi, Moshe wrote to us, If a man's brother die, and leave his woman behind him, and leave no children, that his brother should take his woman, and raise up seed to his brother. Now there were 7 brethren, and the first took a woman, and dying left no seed. And the second took her, and died, and left no seed. And the third likewise. And the 7 had her, and left no seed. Last of all, the woman died also. In the resurrection, therefore, when they shall rise, whose woman shall she be? For the 7 had her as their woman. And Yahusha answering said to them, Do ye not therefore err, because ye know yada not the scriptures, neither the power geruva of El? For when they shall rise from the dead, they neither marry nor are given in marriage, Ona, but are as the angels, Malakim, who are in heaven, Shamayim. And as touching the dead that they rise, have ye not read in the Sefer of Moshe how in the thorn bush Elohai spoke to him, saying, I am the Elohai of Avraham, and the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Yaakov? He is not the Elohai of the dead, but the Elohai of the living. Ye therefore do greatly err. And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, Which is the first commandment, mitzvah, of all? And Yahusha answered him, The first of all the commandments, mitzvot, is Shema Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad, U'ahavata Yahuwah Eloheka, Bekol levavaka, U'bekol nefeshka, U'bekol meodaka, U'ahavata lerecha kamoka u'achin. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah is one, and you shall love Ahav, Yahuwah Eloheka, with all your heart, Labeh, and with all your soul, Nefesh, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the first commandment, mitzvah. And the second is like, namely this, you shall love Ahav, your neighbor as yourself. There is none other commandment, mitzvah, greater than these. And the scribe said to him, Well, Rabbi, you have said the truth, emet. For there is one Yah, and there is none other but He. And to love, Ahav, Him with all the heart, Labeh, and with all the understanding, Binah, and with all the soul, Nefesh, and with all the strength, and to love Avah, his neighbor, as himself, is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices, Zabak. And when Yahusha saw that he answered discreetly, he said to him, You are not far from the kingdom, Malkuth of Yahuwah. And no man after that dared ask him any question. And Yahusha answered and said, while he taught in the temple, How say the scribes that HaMashiach is the son of David? For David himself said by the Ruach HaKodesh, Yahuwah said to my Adonai, Sit on my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. David therefore himself calls him Adonai. And where is he then, his son? And the common people heard him gladly. And he said to them in his doctrine, Beware of the scribes who love chashach to go in long clothing, and lav chashach, salutations in the marketplaces, and the chief rosh seats in the synagogues, and the uppermost rooms at feasts, who devour widows' houses, and for a pretense make long prayers, these shall receive greater damnation. And Yahusha sat over against the treasury, and beheld how the people cast money into the treasury, and many that were rich cast in much. And there came a certain poor widow, and she threw in 2 mites, which made a farthing. And he called to him his Talmudim, and said to them, Amen, I say to you, that this poor widow has cast more in than all they who have cast into the treasury. For all they cast in was of their abundance, but she, in her want, did cast in all that she had, even all her living. Chapter 13. And as he went out of the temple, one of his Talmudim said to him, Rabbi, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. And Yahusha, answering, said to him, See these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Kepha and Yaakov and Yehukanan and Andrai asked him privately, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? And Yahusha answering them began to say, Take heed, lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Mashiach, and shall deceive many. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be troubled, for such things must be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation ethnos shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. And the Besorah must first be published among all nations. But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what ye shall speak, neither do ye premeditate. But whatever shall be given you in that hour, that speak. For it is not ye that speak, but the Ruach HaKodesh. Now a brother shall betray a brother to death, and a father the son, and children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. And ye shall be hated, Saneh, of all for my name's sake. But he that shall endure Netzach to the end, the same shall be saved. But when ye shall see the abomination, Sheketz, of desolation, Shemem, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, let him that reads understand, Binah. Then let those that be in Yehud flee to the mountains, and let him that is on the housetop not go down into the house, neither enter therein to take anything out of his house. And let him that is in the field not turn back again to take up his garment. But woe to those who are with child, and to those who give suck in those days, and pray Balal, that your flight be not in the winter. For in those days shall there be affliction such as never was from the beginning of the creation which Elohim created to this time, neither shall there be. And except that Yahuwah had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he has chosen, he has shortened the days. And then, if any man shall say to you, Lo, here is Mashiach, or Lo, he is there, do not believe him. For false Mashiachim and false prophets, Nevi'im, shall rise, and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. But take heed, behold, I have foretold you all things. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven, Shamayim, shall fall, and the powers, Gevurah, that are in heaven, Shamayim, shall be shaken. And then shall they see the son of Adam, Ben Adam, coming in the clouds with great power, Gevurah, and glory, Tifarah. And then shall he send his angels, Malakim, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven, Shamayim. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and puts forth leaves, ye know, Yada, that summer is near. So ye in like manner, when ye shall see these things come to pass, know, Yada, that it is near, even at the doors. Amen, I say to you, that this nation shall not pass till all these things be done. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my words, Devarim, shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knows Yada, no, not the angels, Malakim, who are in heaven, Shamayim, neither the Son, but the Father, Avi. Take heed, watch, and pray, Palal, for ye do not know, Yada, when the time is. For the son of Adam, Ben Adam, is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Therefore watch, for ye know, Yada, not when the master of the house comes at evening, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he finds you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to all, watch. Chapter 14. After 2 days was the feast moed of the Pesach, and of the feast moed of Matzah, and the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar of the people. And being in Bethany, in the house of Shimon the jar maker, as he sat to eat, there came a woman who had an alabaster box of ointment of very precious spikenard. And she broke the box and poured it on his head. And some were indignant within themselves, and said, why was this ointment wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii, and could have been given to the poor. And they murmured, Lun, against her. And Yahusha said, let her alone. Why do ye trouble her? She has wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor with you always, and whenever ye will, ye may do them good. But me ye will not always have. She has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for the burying. Amen, I say to you, wherever this Besorah shall be preached, lebasar, throughout the whole world, what she has done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her. And Yehuda Iskariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, to betray him to them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. And he sought how he might conveniently betray him. At the beginning of the daylight hours of the Pesach week, when they killed the Pesach, his Talmudim said to him, "Where do you will that we should go to prepare that you may eat the Pesach?" And he sent forth 2 of his Talmudim and said to them, "Go into the city, and there you shall meet a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wherever he goes in, say ye to the good man of the house, the rabbi says, where is the guest chamber where I shall eat the Pesach with my Talmudim? And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There, make ready for us." And his Talmudim went forth and came into the city and found as he had said to them, and they made ready the Pesach. And in the evening he came with the 12. And as they sat and ate, Yehusha said, "Amen, I say to you, one of you who eats with me shall betray me." And they began to be sorrowful and to say to him one by one, "Is it I?" And another said, "Is it I?" And he answered and said to them, "It is one of the 12 that dips with me in the dish. The son of Adam, ben Adam, indeed goes as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the son of Adam, ben Adam, is betrayed. It would be good for that man if he had never been born." And as they ate, Yehusha took bread and blessed it and broke it and gave to them and said, "Take, eat, this is my body. Lekach akal, zo hua gufa." And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it. And he said to them, "This is my blood of the renewed covenant, which is shed for many. Uamer lehem, zo dami, dam habrit, chadasha hana shefach bead rabahim." Amen, I say to you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it anew in the kingdom, Malkuth, of Yahuwah. And when they had sung a hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. And Yehusha said to them, "All ye shall be offended because of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, Roi, and the sheep, Son, shall be scattered, Putz. But after I am risen, I will go before you into Galil." But Kepha said to him, "Although all of us shall be offended, yet I will not." And Yehusha said to him, "Amen, I say to you, this day, even in this night, before the cock crow twice, you shall deny me thrice." But he spoke the more vehemently, "If I should die with you, I will not deny you in any wise." Likewise, they all also said. And they came to a place which was named Gethsemane. And he said to his Talmudim, "Sit here while I shall pray Palal." And he took with him Kepha and Yaakov and Yehuchanan, and began to be very amazed and to be very heavy, and said to them, "My soul, Nephesh, is exceeding sorrowful to death. Tarry here and watch." And he went forward a little and fell on the ground and prayed that, if it were possible, that the hour might pass from him. And he said, "Abba, Father, all things are possible to you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will." And he came and found them sleeping, and said to Kepha, "Shimon, do you sleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, Palal, lest ye enter into temptation. The Ruach truly is ready, but the flesh is weak. And again he went away and prayed and spoke the same words, Devarim. And when he returned, he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know how to answer him. And he came to them a third time and said, Sleep on now and take your rest. It is enough. The hour is come. Behold, the son of Adam, ben Adam, is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Hachatayim. Rise up, let us go. Lo, he that betrays me is at hand. And immediately while he spoke, Yehuda came, one of the 12, and with him a great multitude with swords and staves from the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and the scribes and the elders. And he that betrayed him had given them a sign, saying, Whomever I shall kiss, that same is he. Take him and lead him away safely. And as soon as he had come, he went straightway to him and said, Rabbi, Rabbi, and kissed him. And they laid their hands on him and took him. And one of those that stood by drew a sword and smote a servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. And Yahusha said to them, Have ye come out as against a thief with swords and with staves to take me? I was with you daily in the temple teaching, and ye did not take me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled. And they all forsook him and fled. And a certain young man there followed him, having a linen cloth cast about his naked body. And the young men laid hold on him, and he left the linen cloth and fled from them naked. And they led Yahusha away to the high priest, and with him were assembled all the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and the elders, and the scribes. And Kepha followed him afar off, even into the palace of the high priest, and he sat with the servants and warmed himself at the fire. And the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, and all the council sought for witness against Yahusha to put him to death, and found none. For many bore false witness, sheker eid, against him, but their witness did not agree. And there arose a certain man, and bore false witness, sheker eid, against him, saying, We heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands. But other witnesses did not agree. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Yahusha, saying, You answer nothing? What is it which these witnesses have against you? But he held his peace and answered nothing. Again the high priest asked him and said to him, Are you Hamashiach, the Son of the Blessed? And Yahusha said, I am, and ye shall see the Son of Adam, ben Adam, sitting on the right hand of power, Gevorah, and coming in the clouds of heaven, Romaiym. Then the high priest rent his clothes and said, Why do we need any further witnesses? Ye have heard the blasphemy, Netzah. What do ye think? And they all condemned him to be guilty of death. And some began to spit on him, and to cover his face, and to buffet him, and to say to him, Prophesy. And the servants did strike him with the palms of their hands. And as Kepha was beneath in the palace, there came one of the maids of the high priest. And when she saw Kepha warming himself, she looked upon him and said, And you also were with Yahusha the Netzeri. But he denied, saying, I do not know, Yada, neither understand, Bina, what you say. And he went out into the porch, and the cock crowed. And a maid saw him again, and began to say to those who stood by, This is one of them. And he denied it again. And a little after, they that stood by said again to Kepha, Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilee, and your speech agrees thereto. But he began to curse and to swear, saying, I do not know, yada, this man of whom ye speak. And the second time the cock crowed, and Kepha called to mind the word Omer, that Yahusha said to him, Before the cock crows twice, you shall deny me thrice. And when he thought thereupon, he wept. Chapter 15. And straightway in the morning the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council, and bound Yahusha, and carried him away, and delivered him to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, Are you the king of the Yahudim? And he, answering, said to him, You say it. And the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, accused him of many things, but he answered nothing. And Pilate asked him again, saying, Do you answer nothing? Behold, how many things they witness against you. But Yahusha answered nothing, so that Pilate marveled. Now at that feast he released to them one prisoner, whomever they desired. And there was one named Barabbas, who lay bound with those who had made insurrection with him, who had committed murder in the insurrection, the son of their master, who had been condemned on account of sedition and murder. And the multitude, crying aloud, began to desire him to do as he had ever done to them. But Pilate answered them, saying, Will ye that I release to you the king of the Yahudim? For he knew that the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, had delivered him for envy. But the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, moved the people that he should rather release Barabbas to them. And Pilate answered and said again to them, What then shall I do to him whom ye call the king of the Yahudim? And they cried out again, Crucify him. Then Pilate said to them, Why, what evil has he done? And they cried out the more exceedingly, Crucify him. And so Pilate, willing to content the people, released Barabbas to them, and delivered Yahusha when he had scourged him to be crucified. And the soldiers led him away into the hall called Praetorium, and they called together the whole band, and they clothed him with purple, and plaited a crown geter of thorns, and put it about his head, and began to salute him. Hail, King Melech of the Yahudim! And they smote him on the head with a reed, and did spit upon him, and bowing their knees, worshipped him. And when they had mocked him, they took off the purple from him, and put his own clothes on him, and led him out to crucify him. And they compelled one Shimon, a Cyrenian, who passed by, coming out of the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to bear his cross. And they brought him to the place Golgotha, which is, being interpreted, the place of a skull. And they gave him to drink wine mingled with myrrh, but he did not receive it. And when they had crucified him, they parted his garments, casting lots upon them, what every man should take. And it was the 3rd hour, and they crucified him. And the superscription of his accusation was written over, The King of the Yahudim, Hamelech ha-Yahudim. And with him they crucified 2 thieves, the one on his right hand, and the other on his left. And the scripture was fulfilled, which said, "And he was numbered with the transgressors." And they that passed by railed on him, wagging their heads, and saying, "Ah, you that destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." Likewise also the chief priests, Rosh Kohen, mocking, said among themselves with the scribes, "He saved others, he himself he cannot save. Let Hamashiach, the King Melech of Yisrael, descend now from the cross, that we may see and believe." And they that were crucified with him reviled him. And when the 6th hour came, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Yahusha cried with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama azavtani," which is, being interpreted, my El, why have you forsaken me?" And some of those who stood by, when they heard, said, "Behold, he calls Eliyahu." And one ran and filled a sponge full of vinegar and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Let alone, let us see whether Eliyahu will come to take him down." And Yahusha cried with a loud voice and gave up his ruach. And the veil of the temple was rent in two from the top to the bottom. The lintel of the temple, of immense size, was broken and fell down. And when the centurion who stood over against him saw that he cried out so and gave up his ruach, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of Elohiym." There were also women looking on from afar, among whom was Miriam of Migdal, and Miriam the mother of Yaakov the Less, and of Yosef and Shalom, who also, when he was in Galilee, followed him and ministered to him, and many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. And now when the evening had come, because it was the preparation, that is, the day before the Shabbat, Yosef of Ramah, an honorable counselor, who also waited for the kingdom Malkuth of Yahuwah, came and went in boldly to Pilate and asked for the body of Yahusha. And Pilate marveled that he was already dead. And he called the centurion to him, and he asked him whether he had been dead any while. And when he heard it from the centurion, he gave the body to Joseph. And he bought fine linen, and took him down, and wrapped him in the linen, and laid him in a sepulchre, which was hewn out of a rock, and rolled a stone even to the door of the sepulchre. And Miriam of Migdal, and Miriam the mother of Joseph, saw where he was laid. Chapter 16. And when the Shabbat was past, Miriam of Migdal and Miriam, the mother of Yaakov, and Shalom had brought sweet spices, that they might come and anoint him. And very early in the morning of that Shabbat, they came to the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. And they said among themselves, "Who shall roll us away the stone, Ben, from the door of the sepulchre?" And when they looked, they saw that the stone, Ben, was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were frightened. And he said to them, "Do not be frightened. Ye seek Yahusha the Nazarene, who was crucified. He is risen. He is not here. Behold, the place where they laid him. But go your way, tell his Talmudim and Kepha that he goes before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said to you." And they went out quickly and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. They said nothing to any one, for they were afraid. Now when Yahusha was risen early Shabbat morning, he appeared first to Miriam of Migdal, out of whom he had cast 7 devils. And she went and told them that had been with him, as they mourned and wept. And they, when they had heard that he was alive and that she had seen him, they did not believe it. After that, he appeared in another form to 2 of them as they walked and went into the country. And they went and told it to the remnant, and they did not believe them. Afterward, he appeared to the 11 as they sat to eat, and upbraided them with their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they did not believe them which had seen him after he was risen. And he said to them, Go into all the world and preach the Besorah to every creature, nefesh. He that believes and is immersed shall be saved, but he that does not believe shall be damned. And these signs shall follow those who believe. In my name shall they cast out devils. They shall speak with new tongues. They shall take up serpents, and if they drink any deadly thing, it shall not hurt them. They shall lay their hands on the sick, and they shall recover. So then, after Adonai had spoken with them, he was received up into heaven, Romaiym, and sat on the right hand of Yah. And they went forth and preached the Besorah everywhere, Yahuwah working with them and confirming the word Omer with signs following. Amen.